The wind moved like a ghost through the Missouri hills that autumn evening of 1915. The sun, tired and low, bled orange across the sky, and the sound of wheels creaked along the dirt road leading toward Willow Creek. Elias Gray sat atop a weathered wagon, reins in hand, a black overcoat brushing against his boots. His horse, a gentle brown mare named Mercy, trudged forward patiently. The wagon bore no markings, save for a single wooden chest and a strange satchel that pulsed faintly with a pale light. He wasn't a preacher. He wasn't a doctor. He was a salesman, though not the kind that sold anything you could touch. As he reached the crest of the hill, he paused to watch smoke rising from the small town below. Lanterns flickered in cabin windows, and church bells echoed faintly in the distance. He smiled softly, almost sadly. "Another town," he murmured. "Another chance to do it right." And with that, the man who called himself Elias Gray & Co. Solutions for the Soul rode down toward Willow Creek. Willow Creek was the kind of town that time forgot. Dirt roads, wooden storefronts, and the weary faces of people who'd lost too much too soon. The war in Europe had taken its toll. Sons never came home, and fathers walked through life like ghosts. When Elias arrived, people noticed. He was polite, clean-spoken, and carried himself like a man of promise. He rented a small patch of land beneath an ancient sycamore tree near the town square and painted his sign in gold letters, E. Gray and Comure. Solutions for the Soul. The townsfolk laughed at first. "What's he selling? Snake oil?" one man joked. But when Elias tipped his hat and said, "Peace," there was something in his eyes, calm, almost otherworldly, that made people stop laughing. By sundown, curious whispers filled the tavern and the churchyard alike. In a town where everyone was broken in some way, the promise of peace was worth at least a visit. The first to approach was Martha Halloway, the widow who lived on the edge of town. Her son had died in France and she hadn't smiled since. Every morning she walked to the cemetery, and every night she lit a candle in her window, waiting for a ghost that never came. She approached Elias cautiously as he arranged bottles on his wagon. "I heard you can help people," she said. "I try," Elias replied gently, "but help comes in many forms. What is it your heart needs, Mrs. Halloway?" Her lips trembled. "I need peace. I'm so tired of crying." Elias nodded, eyes full of understanding. "Peace can be given, yes, but it must be traded for something in return. All balance must be kept." She frowned. "What do I have to give?" "Only what you no longer wish to carry," he said softly, pulling out a small piece of parchment. "Sign your sorrow away, and rest will find you." The widow hesitated, then reached for the pen. Her tears fell on the paper, smudging her name as she signed. Elias handed her a small glass vial filled with a faint, glowing mist. "Keep this near your heart," he whispered. "Tonight, you will dream of peace." That night, for the first time in years, Martha slept soundly. No tears, no nightmares. But when she woke, something inside her was gone. The ache that once reminded her of her son was replaced with silence. Not comfort, not joy, just silence. She smiled faintly and went about her day, humming to herself. The neighbors were relieved. "She's finally healing," they said. But they didn't notice the dullness in her eyes or how her hands no longer trembled when she passed her son's picture. Meanwhile, in his wagon beneath the sycamore tree, Elias opened his satchel and placed her vial inside. It glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed, joining the others. He whispered to himself, "One less soul burdened." But even as he spoke, his expression was heavy with doubt. Within days, the town began to buzz. Word spread that the salesman's remedies worked. A farmer, crushed by debt, claimed his anxiety had vanished. A young woman mourning her father said she could laugh again. A preacher who had lost his faith suddenly preached with joy in his voice. And so, one by one, the townspeople came. They stood beneath the sycamore, their pain bottled and signed away. Each left feeling lighter, freer. But something was wrong. The town grew quieter with each passing day. Laughter was hollow. Prayers felt rehearsed. Even the birds seemed to avoid Willow Creek's skies. At night, Elias sat in his wagon, staring at his glowing collection of vials. Each one pulsed faintly, like captured lightning. He tried to feel proud. Instead, he felt haunted. One chilly morning, a boy no older than 12 approached Elias's wagon. His shoes were torn, and his hair was the color of straw. "My name's Samuel Reed," he said. "Pa's sick. Ma cries every night. Can you make her smile again?" Elias smiled kindly. "I can give her peace, son. But not all peace is good. Some pain must stay, else love disappears with it." Samuel frowned. "That doesn't make sense." Elias knelt down, looking the boy in the eyes. "Sometimes, what hurts us most is what keeps us human." Samuel thought about that for a long moment. Then he said softly, "You help everyone else? Why not her?" Elias hesitated. For the first time since arriving in Willow Creek, he had no ready answer. That Sunday, the little white church on the hill was packed tighter than usual. Pastor Whitmore, a stern man with silver hair and a voice that shook rafters, took to the pulpit. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "the devil does not always come with horns. Sometimes he comes with kind words and false comfort. Beware the man who trades in what belongs to God. The soul," gasps echoed. All eyes turned toward Elias, sitting quietly at the back pew, hat in hand. He did not flinch, did not leave. After service, people whispered behind his back. Yet many of them, those who had already signed, said nothing. They couldn't remember why they ever needed to. Their pain had been erased along with the will to care. Outside the church, Pastor Whitmore confronted Elias. "Whatever you're selling, it isn't peace." Elias met his gaze. "And what are you selling, Pastor? Forgiveness to those who don't know how to earn it?" The pastor froze, unsure whether to be angry or afraid. That night, Elias opened his satchel beside the fire. Inside lay dozens of glass vials, each one labeled with a name. "Martha Halloway, Thomas Clark, Reverend Owens," he murmured. The vials shimmered like fireflies in the dark. Beside them lay a small leather-bound ledger. Each page was filled with signatures, proof of every trade. Elias ran his fingers along the inked names, his eyes weary. He whispered, "I took their pain. But what if pain was what made them alive?" The fire crackled. The vials hummed softly, like distant heartbeats. Elias buried his face in his hands. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of every deal he'd ever made. That night, Elias dreamt. He stood in a white field beneath an endless sky. In front of him stood a younger version of himself, clean-shaven, eyes bright and hopeful. "You used to heal people," the younger Elias said. "You helped the broken find their way back to hope." "I still do," the older Elias replied. "No," his younger self said, shaking his head. "You used to teach them to face pain. Now you take it away from them. You've become a thief, Elias. A thief of lessons that make souls grow." Elias fell to his knees. "I only wanted to help." The younger man knelt beside him. "You can't help by stealing their trials. Pain is proof of life, not a curse to be erased." When Elias woke, his face was wet with tears. Outside, the autumn wind whispered through the trees. In a small cabin not far from the sycamore, Samuel knelt by his bed, hands clasped. "God," he whispered, "if you're listening, please make Ma smile again, but don't let her trade her soul for it." He didn't understand exactly what Elias did, but something in his heart warned him it wasn't right. Meanwhile, Elias, sleeping in his wagon, stirred restlessly. The boy's words carried through the wind and into his dreams. For the first time in his long, wandering life, Elias felt a tremor of something he thought he'd long lost: guilt. When he awoke, he whispered to the night, "Maybe I've gone too far." And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled softly over the Missouri hills, as if heaven itself was beginning to stir. The morning after the boy's prayer, the sycamore leaves glistened with dew. The town seemed quieter than ever. Elias sat by his wagon, staring into the mist, when he saw her, Clara Reed, Samuel's mother, walking toward him. Her dress was faded, her hands trembling, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. "Mr. Gray," she said softly, "I can't live like this anymore. My husband's dying, and my boy. He's too young to carry this sorrow. Please, give me peace." Elias rose slowly. The air seemed heavy around them. "Peace has its price, Mrs. Reed. You'd be trading more than your pain." She wiped her eyes. "I'll give anything." He studied her face, the exhaustion, the desperate love still burning behind her tears. It struck him then that it wasn't her pain she wanted gone. It was her fear of failing her son. Elias's voice trembled. "If I take your sorrow, I take your love with it. He'll lose the mother who still fights to stay human." Clara's lips quivered. "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Hold him," Elias said gently. "Hold him until it hurts less. Because if you give up your pain, you give up what makes you his mother." She stared at him for a long moment, then turned away, sobbing, but walking home. And Elias, for the first time, did not make a sale. That evening, Elias sat alone under the sycamore, the cold wind whipping at his coat. The golden letters on his sign shimmered in the firelight: E. Gray & Co. Solutions for the Soul. He stared at it for a long time. Then, with trembling hands, he lifted a rock and smashed it to splinters. The wagon creaked as he opened it. Dozens of vials glowed from within, pulsing like living hearts. He could feel them humming, each one whispering fragments of forgotten pain and laughter. He clenched his fists. "I thought I was helping," he muttered. "All I did was steal." For the first time in his long journey, Elias realized he wasn't a healer, he was a collector. And that night, as thunder began to roll over the hills, Elias decided something that would change Willow Creek forever. The storm came suddenly. Rain fell in sheets, lightning split the sky, and the hills trembled with thunder. Elias stood barefoot in the mud beside his wagon, soaked to the bone. The vials glowed through the canvas like trapped souls begging to be freed. He opened the satchel and lifted one. It pulsed with Martha Halloway's sorrow. Her son's memory shimmered faintly within the glass. "I took what was sacred," Elias whispered. "Now I give it back." With shaking hands, he uncorked the vial. A burst of light shot into the air, spiraling toward the heavens. One by one, he opened them all, each releasing a radiant wisp that soared across the stormy sky, drifting toward the sleeping town below. Inside their homes, people stirred. Martha woke with tears streaming down her face, clutching her son's photograph. The farmer felt his old worry return, but also the will to fight it. The preacher fell to his knees, feeling faith rekindle like fire in his chest. By the time the last vial was emptied, the storm had quieted. And Elias Gray stood beneath the sycamore, his satchel now empty, but his heart strangely full. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, a faint humming sound rose from the trees. Elias turned and saw him. A man in a perfectly tailored black suit, shoes unstained by mud, holding an umbrella that didn't touch the rain. His eyes glowed faintly red. "Well, Mr. Gray," the man said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That was quite the show. Elias's jaw tightened. You. The man chuckled. Oh, don't sound so surprised. You've been working for me all along. Every deal you made, every soul you bottled, it all came to my account. I never made a deal with you. Oh, but you did, the stranger said, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. When you chose ease over truth, when you offered shortcuts to souls meant to struggle, every good intention is a contract when pride is the pen. Elias's face was pale. Then I break the contract. The stranger laughed. And what will you pay with this time, salesman? You've got nothing left to sell. The rain began again, slow and heavy. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out his ledger, the Book of Souls. Its pages were blank now, washed clean by the storm. I'll pay with mine, Elias said quietly. If one soul can buy back the rest, take it. The man's grin faded. You'd trade your eternity for theirs? I already have, Elias whispered. Every lie I sold cost me a piece of it. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the man's eyes flickered, uncertain. Brave, he said finally, but foolish. He reached out, touched Elias's shoulder, and vanished in a flash of light and smoke, leaving behind only the faint scent of sulfur. Elias fell to his knees, gasping for breath. For a moment, the world was utterly still. Then, a single beam of dawn light broke through the clouds and touched his face. When morning came, the storm had passed. The air smelled of wet earth and new beginnings. Willow Creek awoke changed. Martha Halloway stood in her garden, tears of both grief and gratitude streaming down her face. The preacher prayed not for deliverance but for strength. Farmers, widows, and children all felt something stirring inside them, a heartbeat they had forgotten. At the Reed house, Samuel woke to the sound of his mother laughing softly. It was the first time he'd heard that sound in years. "Ma?" he whispered, blinking in disbelief. She turned, eyes bright with tears. I feel alive again." Samuel grinned, not knowing why, but somehow certain it had to do with the salesman. When he ran to the sycamore tree later that day, Elias's wagon was gone. Only the broken sign and a few scraps of parchment remained. Weeks passed. Then one morning, Pastor Whitmore found something curious outside his church, a small weathered book lying beside the steps. It was Elias's ledger. He carried it inside, opened it carefully, and turned to the last page. In elegant handwriting, it read, "To sell peace is to steal from grace. To bear pain is to honor the gift of being human. I was a fool, but even fools can find redemption. Elias Gray." The pastor closed the book and whispered a prayer, not of judgment, but of gratitude. From that day on, the church bells of Willow Creek rang not to warn of sin, but to remind people that every hardship had meaning. Years passed, and the story of the salesman became local legend. Children grew up hearing whispers about the man who bottled souls. Samuel Reed, now grown and gray-haired, often sat by that same sycamore tree with his grandchildren. When storms rolled through the hills, he would tell them the tale. Some said he was a devil, Samuel would say, smiling at the thunder. Others said he was an angel who got lost on the road. But I think he was just a man, one who forgot what pain was for, and remembered just in time. His grandchildren would sit wide-eyed, clutching each other's hands as lightning flashed and rain pattered around them. And Samuel would always end the same way. Every storm passes, and every heart heals, but only if you let it. One spring morning, long after Samuel had passed, a traveler came through Willow Creek. He was a painter, searching for quiet places to rest. He found the old sycamore tree and sat beneath it, setting down his easel. As he dug into the soil to steady the stand, his fingers brushed against glass. It was a small vial, clouded with age, yet faintly glowing inside. Curious, he held it up to the sunlight. Instead of sorrow, the light inside shimmered warm and golden. He pulled the cork free. Instantly, a soft breeze swept through the trees, and for a moment he thought he heard laughter, gentle, kind, familiar. The air carried a whisper. Every soul deserves a second chance. The painter smiled, not understanding why, but suddenly feeling at peace. The people of Willow Creek never forgot the salesman. They built no statues, held no sermons, but his story lived on in the way they treated one another. They learned that peace cannot be purchased and sorrow cannot be erased. Pain, though heavy, is sacred. It shapes us, teaches us, binds us to one another. And on stormy nights, when thunder rolled through the Missouri hills, those who remembered would look toward the horizon and whisper, "He's out there still, setting souls free." Somewhere beyond the hills, a lone traveler walked an empty road beneath a quiet sky. His satchel was light now, emptied of all but one thing, a heart that finally belonged to him. And as dawn broke over the land, Elias Gray smiled for the first time in years, because he had finally sold his last soul, his own, and bought back his humanity.